Welcome to the Cannabis Detector podcast. No sugar, all spice. With the industry BS detector in residence, Kristen Yoder.
Hello, my cannabis detectors. Thanks for joining me for our first official episode of season 2, where I am calling out the victims of legalization, or why legalization is something I wholeheartedly don't support. And I wanted to bring in a good friend and an incredibly intelligent, well-spoken dude, Brad Slaughter. He was formerly with the California Weed Blog. He is now co-founder and president of Nature's Secret Holdings, which is a portfolio of 7 subsidiaries, 6 of them being CBD related. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure being on. Always love having conversations with you.
Yeah, so we just spent like 45 minutes going off on politics and just how fucked up everything really is. And we had to stop so we could record the show because we could probably talk for hours.
Absolutely.
But you're someone who, whenever I'm calling out legalization and how people need to stop voting for legalization without reading the actual small print, because we should not just accept something that sounds good, because I don't know if anyone's noticed, but usually when it sounds good, it's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for the people, Prop 64 is a perfect picture of that. And I know you were against it. I was against it. And now California is dealing with it. And I think that Prop 64 is an excellent example of what national legalization is going to look like, where 2/3 of the country is going to opt out of it. I don't think people realize legalization does not mean that weed will be legal in all 50 states.
No, it won't.
Just with alcohol, a lot of states have dry counties. What makes people think that all of a sudden southern states are going to open up a booming cannabis industry? That's insane. 2/3 of California won't allow cannabis businesses in it. It's totally fucked up our state. It's fucked up our industry, which is why this season I'm focusing on the victims of legalization, because a lot of people voted for it and it destroyed their livelihoods. Let's tackle one of the first misconceptions, and that's because I hear from a lot of people in states where it's not legal or decriminalized and they have a shitty medical program. And they're like, look, all you people in legal states are all complaining about the business's best interest, but we just want to stop getting arrested for it. Well, guess what? People are getting arrested every fucking day in California from legalization.
Yes, they are. And Well, the first fallacy that people need to understand is that, yes, California did legalize cannabis for adult use. However, what they don't understand is that only 18 of 88 counties have actually accepted commercial cannabis use. That is being 58 counties now.
Yeah.
Okay, so they finally gone up. So since recreation actually happened. So it's been a lot more that have actually hopped onto that board.
No, I'm saying there's only 58 counties in the state.
Oh, so 18 out of the 58 counties have actually accepted it. So
correct.
We're looking at less than 30% of the counties that have actually accepted commercial cannabis at this point.
Yes.
So, and this was the place. California was the place that everyone was looking at. Sure, yeah, Colorado legalized and Nevada and Washington and Oregon legalized, but they were really focusing on California. This was this major thing that if California makes it, and if you make it in California, anything's going to happen everywhere else. But they don't see the problems that in lie. And that was a lack of regulation. That was a very piss poor management of how to actually set up the structure of the cannabis market in California. And then actually going on what they were going to put that regulation on, other than just startup cannabis businesses that were there in the first place.
Yeah, so my main beef with this is before we had Prop 215, which it wasn't perfect at all. And it still left everyone open to getting arrested or getting raided, which is why I say most legacy cannabis businesses in California are run by sociopaths because regular business people were not willing to take the risk of going to jail for this business. And the people that were down to not pay taxes and run things under the table. So now what we have is, at least back then, there were a lot. I mean, we had a booming cannabis industry. Cannabis was decriminalized under SB 420, I believe. It was under Schwarzenegger. And that was so we could hold up to an ounce of cannabis and a couple other things. And then if you wanted to buy it, you just pay $40 for a video Skype call with some doctor who is a shitty doctor probably. And then you have the right to go into stores or order delivery. And we were good, man. We were good. People are still getting arrested, but not as much as now. And now we have 2/3 of state where there are still patients that need access, except under Prop 64, it gave all of these cities and counties the right to completely opt out of legalization, which is a complete ban on cannabis businesses. And now all of the patients and anybody who decided to still continue to operate, they are straight up illegal. They are criminals. And guess who wants the criminals to get shut down? The licensed businesses. So now we have 2/3 of the state with no access. And because nobody's buying the overtaxed cannabis from the very limited amount of legal shops that there are an insane amount of raids going on. What's that one city? It's escaping my name right, or I can't remember. It'll come to me. But they went door to door and they killed everyone's plants, whether it was your own homegrown 6 plants or whatever. They raided the entire freaking city. And this is what I'm talking about. Legalization is a set of laws. It's not decriminalization. Decriminalization is to make something no longer a crime. So now we have so many laws that most of the companies that are operating now won't be operating in 2 years because they're going to have to deal with an insane amount of regulatory changes that happens in every single state. And it will wipe you out because it costs a lot of money to be compliant.
Absolutely. I mean, let's not talk about the excise taxes and all the state and federal taxes you have to do. And then on top of that, you can't write anything off because of this 280E rule still. So there's plenty of fucking issues that you have when you're looking at the conglomerate of what's going on. And really at the end of the day, I mean, even a layman can look at this entire process of what's going on in California and say, this was a setup.
Yes.
It's got to be a setup. Like there's no way that you can say for the infrastructure in California, one of the largest states and one of the most per capita states in the entire world with its infrastructure. They gave 20 years to the energy departments to clean up their shit with what they had to do to change everything to either renewable or fix their infrastructure of electrical purposes. California gave cannabis a year and a half to fix their entire structural process, and not even fix it, where they would go in with the gray market and try to figure out how to work this distribution system. They just completely threw out the entire rule book, created a new one, put the BCC in control of it without state help, and let it run.
I think,
of course, there's going to be issues.
Well, what's interesting is I had interviewed the head of communications for the BCC in 2017, Alex Traverso. And
that guy, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I've always been against Prop 64, and I brought up my concerns to him, and he said, look, we realize that California is literally too big to fail. That's why we're bringing in people from Oregon and Washington and Colorado. And they did. They went on these speaking tours across the state, I don't know, pretending to listen because obviously they didn't learn anything from them. And
it's not in the rules and it's not in the laws. They didn't put any of those laws together that had anything to do with what Colorado, Oregon, and Washington had to do.
For example, allowing outside investment money immediately. A lot of states were protective to give the people in the state the opportunity to actually start a business and make something before outside money came in. Then on the 11th hour, when they were not going to allow the mega grows for 5 years to try and give small to medium farms a chance to survive, the 11th hour, they changed something, and now they allow license stacking, which means somebody can get a license in lots that are right next to each other to make up a huge amount of space for grows.
Type 3 licenses.
Exactly. So there's so few people that hold the most licenses in California that it's already becoming pretty much cornered by big money. And then they have so the BCC has the cannabis, what's it called? All the people that they brought from the cannabis industry, the stakeholders, the community panel or whatever.
Right.
Everyone is like a fucking lobbyist or a consultant or nobody from the cannabis industry that actually touches the plant or had anything to do with the cannabis industry that isn't profiting off of it. I know some of those people are out there advising on how to get licenses while they're also sitting on that board making decisions. That seems a little bit of a conflict of interest.
Insert Cat Packer.
Yes. No, not Cat Packer. I mean, dude, let me tell you. So Cat Packer is the Los Angeles cannabis czar. And I mean, dude, I have mad respect for her because she had the most shittiest city, Los Angeles.
Of course she did.
Everything is getting blamed on her. And it's just too fucking convenient for the city council. As someone who has been going to city council meetings since 2007 to try and get a legitimate pathway for dispensaries and whatever. It's all on her now. The social equity, it's all on her. And she's like 25 or 27 or something. I mean, she's incredibly talented, but I feel bad for anybody that has to take on the fucking garbage of the city council. And
to be honest with you, like Cat Packer got thrown into a really horrible situation. Yeah. And like, I don't know her extremely well, but what I do know is that, she fought for Prop 64. She was a huge advocate of it and really tried to move the envelope forward and push the envelope forward. But the reality of it is nobody really wanted to be the cannabis quote unquote czar of Canada in Los Angeles. So she was a last resort. Let's bring her in. Let's put her on there. Hey, guess what? She's Black. She's a woman. She'll get a lot of sympathy votes. Let's bring her in and we can do that. And then at the end of the day, they're like, now everyone's going to blame her because, what most people don't realize and understand is that the BCC really has no power. If you look at how they actually run and where the laws lie, a lot of it goes to the state, directly to Sacramento. The BCC is, in essence, kind of just like like how you pay your taxes. Let's go with that. So they collect your taxes, they do all that type of stuff, your financials, but they don't regulate anything. They just collect it, and they don't have any type of ruling on how they can govern different laws and how it works. But they just collect things. They talk about it. They go on events and they speak about everything. And they're the figureheads of it. And they're the down people. Really, if you look at it in a corporation standpoint, they're the C-suite people. The board of directors are the ones that actually control everything. The C-suite people are the ones that usually get arrested or get thrown off to jail if they steal money like Wells Fargo did. That's in essence the same case you have with the government. So the state controls basically everything. And they throw the BCC in there to say, you're the ones that are going to supposedly enforce the regulation and talk with our bureau to make sure everything's taken care of. But you really don't make any decisions. You're just the figureheads that everyone lies upon. Yeah. And you're the ones that will yell. We're the ones that yell at you.
Yeah. It reminds me that the first year after Prop 64 got enacted, one of the most annoying things about California is we're ridiculously democratic in the fact that everything is up for vote on propositions. And they went around on a speaking tour continuously. Every time they would propose a change of regulations, they would go to all the major cities. They would have all the people in the industry come up, voice their concerns. Then they made these really beautiful documents with everybody's questions typed out and then their responses and why they made those responses. And they did it like 3 or 4 times. And every time they changed the regulations, it cost companies tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars every single time that they do that. For example, now they're changing it so that all vape cartridges have to have the little triangle with the exclamation point on the cartridges. That's going to cost so much money. They changed it so at first you didn't have to have child-safe packaging if you had a child-safe exit bag. But then they decided, no, actually, you do have to have child-safe packaging. And then they changed it to say, okay, never mind, it has to be an exit bag. And it's these types of things that cost people so much money to get by, to be able to stay compliant. And the BCC just goes around to make sure you're compliant or you're not. But even the BCC can't get onto your property. I've heard you have to have either the actual officials, the police, or somebody come with you. The BCC can't just go in unless it's for license checks. Do you know, Brad?
I think from what I remember researching is they're kind of like, if you look at it from a large scale, they're kind of like the FDA. So the FDA doesn't really have the enforcement policies the DEA does. The FDA enforces or tells the DEA what to do and how to enforce and who to arrest and stuff like that. They're the one. It's basically the kind of the same dynamic. You still have the regulatory body, and then you have the official body that arrests people, and you have the enforcement. So I think it still runs around that realm.
So, okay, we have like 11 minutes left, and I want to get to national legalization because everybody wants national legalization. And I've talked about this on previous episodes, but national legalization is truly the end of the industry for practically everyone except for the very wealthy few companies that more than likely will be alcohol, tobacco, pharmaceuticals, because they have the distribution, they have the millions, billions of dollars they're going to need to run everything. And it's going to be so incredibly regulated that there's no way that these companies are going to last through it. And now everyone's voting against their best interests. Let's look at the Farm Bill. Everyone thought, oh, now hemp is legal. But it's not legal to grow everywhere. You still have to get a license. Is anybody actually giving out licenses? Very few states are giving out licenses for that. Mm-hmm. So CBD, that is still not completely legal. Though you hear, oh, it's legal in all 50 states.
So
if legalization was to happen, it's going to wipe out any small industry out there. And it's not going to make it no longer a crime. People will still be arrested. In New York State, there was a report that was shown that Acreage Holdings and MedMen had tried to tell the government that home grows are a fallacy. The fallacy of home grow. Of course they would say that. Legalization does not mean you can grow at home. Why on earth would tobacco companies or alcohol companies allow people to grow their own tobacco or distill their own alcohol when that's what they do? That's their business. So if we were to be nationally legalized, A, you would have to be in a state that is okay with that and has a structure for that. B, that you can afford to have a permit or a license to operate, which you probably won't. C, if you're not in any of those places, then everything is still illegal. Having it is illegal, buying it is illegal, selling it is illegal. That's why I'm all for descheduling and decriminalization. But a lot of legalization people say that decriminalization is a smoke show, that it's not legitimate. But I don't believe that. I believe, well, A, if you deschedule cannabis, then it's no longer on the Controlled Substances Act. Then it's no longer treated as a drug, it's treated as a plant. Then if you decriminalize it, then people can have it and they can grow it. Maybe it'll be in a limited amount, but it's not a crime. Treat it like a fucking tomato or something. And if it's regulated by the USDA, I still think it should be pesticide tested.
Yep.
If you're growing your own, then fine. You can't be selling it. But no matter what, no one's going to be allowed to sell it on a small scale.
No, and if you're going to have a couple plants, it's not going to really do anything. They're really trying to corner the market. And at the end of the day, you have to look at history. History repeats itself. And the only reason it repeats itself is because most societies are very generational based. So every generation, people forget about what happened the last generation. And they don't see what's going on, which is why it has this really famous way of just repeating itself all the time through history. So back in the 70s, the whole push was for decriminalization. There were 11 states that were decriminalized in the 70s. And it wasn't until the parent movement came in, because all these head shops were selling these bongs and frisbee bongs and stuff like that to kids that were 13 or 14 years old, because who cares? There was no regulation for children, which then spurred this adult use market, which then Nancy Reagan hopped on board. And now you're looking at Just Say No. But here's the problem. Everyone wants to have legalization. Everyone thinks that legalization is going to be this huge marker in life that, it's going to push the market forward. It's going to be proper regulation for the market. It's going to be great for people. And it's not. It's not at all. It's going to be the downfall of basically all the people who fought for it. All these activists and all these people that have been fighting for it since day one. They're going to be the first people out the door. Because who's going to step up to it? Who's going to step up to it? You look back before marijuana was actually, and I say marijuana, and I hate saying marijuana, but it's what people realize it as and how they classified it between marijuana and hemp. But cannabis was legal way back in the day before the Marijuana Tax Act. And it was in pharmacies. It was being sold and it was being recommended by doctors. There was over 100 different illnesses that were treated with marijuana in the pharmacopoeia. What people don't realize is that it's going to get back to that. Yes, it's inevitable. It's going to be legalized. It's going to happen. And it's been pushing that prerogative ever since. But it's already happened with GW Pharmaceuticals. They already have a Sativex that's going to be out either at the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020. That's a 1-to-1 THC CBD mix. That's an inhalant. And it's been through Europe for over 5-6 years at this point. It's already happening. Happening. Nobody's really looking at it. The medical market of cannabis is going to be strictly for the pharmacies. And then the recreational, the adult use, is going to be for the dispensaries. And it's going to be split up like that. And they're and you see it in Florida, and people started really making a row about what's going on in this Florida market and how they're trying to limit the amount of THC that dispensaries can offer to medical use. Well, that's kind of the essence of what's going to happen nationwide. They're going to give a specific amount of THC ratio and up, whether that be like 20%, 15% and up, whatever. They're going to give that certain percentage to the medical market. So you have to get a doctor's recommendation because, of course, you got to get this medical mill still running, right? So you push this medical mill through the doctors. They still have to get that recommendation. And then the only way they can get over 15% or 20% THC is through the doctors, and they sell that at the pharmacies. But yet, if you want to get something under that and you want to be adult use, sure, you can get under 15% or whatever.
I think something to consider is in Canada, they're just finally going to allow edibles. They're going to start licensing for edibles in October. They have limited the amount of THC per edible, not per serving, per edible, to 10 milligrams. Like, are you fucking serious? 10 milligrams? That's nothing, dude. That's literally nothing. In California, 10 milligrams is a serving. 100 milligrams is the maximum, which even then, patients because the patients have a higher tolerance. So now what used to be a 180 milligram chocolate bar for $20 is now limited at 100 milligrams, and it's $40 with taxes. Who gets screwed? The patients get screwed. They did the same thing in Washington. They had changed it because they would allow 1,000 milligrams for patients, 100 milligrams for recreational. But a lot of these states just want to merge the two because it's too much. I see in a national legalization scheme, and I've already seen this happening, the convenience stores are lobbying, like 7-Eleven, to be the only ones that could be selling cannabis recreational. Because why not put it with the alcohol and the tobacco? I mean, if you go to some states where there's a liquor control board, all they do is sell the liquor, and you're not allowed to do it in a grocery store unless you want to pay an additional 27% tax on the alcohol. So it just, look, in the end, national legalization is not going to change the way things are. It's going to make things more difficult. And another thing that people don't realize is once you have national legalization, we're one step away from globalization. And guess what happens when third world countries can import cannabis? Our fucking farmers get destroyed. You know, like right now, there are subsidies for corn and soy farmers so that they can survive. And in the end, I mean, it's almost better just to get the subsidies. Do you really think they're going to give subsidies to cannabis growers? Which is another thing besides that. There are states that have a much better agricultural climate outdoors to grow cannabis. Do you know how more expensive it is to grow in the desert? Like in California, all of these desert cities with indoor grows, it will be way too cost prohibitive to be able to compete with other states and how much it costs to grow there. So it will literally wipe out industries all over the country. It's just not good. People, pay the fuck attention. Don't vote for things that are not good for you.
It's already happening, and it's already being talked about. And you know, I go to different conferences all the time, and one of the ones that really touches on this is one of the Miami conferences I went to for an investment conference. There was one of the CEOs of Acreage Holdings. The CEO of Acreage Holdings. There was the CEO of Canopy Growth. A couple people were talking about where the markets are and where it's going. I mean, this was an investment conference. You're looking at maybe 500 people at this event, big wigs, people who actually have money, that are movers and shakers, that really understand what's going on in the market. Nobody is looking at America. Nobody. The only time they're actually going into it is for the hemp market. And that's something I'll make a point of in a second. But they're looking at Europe. They're looking at Asia. They're looking at South America. You know, you can go down to South America right now in the Guatemala and a couple other places and get some grows going and ship it into America through free trade zones. And they're already getting that ready. They're already getting that started. It's so cheap to make that stuff down there for this, and the environment's great for high, what people like to call sativa blends or whatever, high euphoric blends. Short leaf leaded blends, great. They're good for those type of products, and they can ship those out and make it for really cheap and ship it in. They're biting at the nail for national legalization because the next step is international travel, is international trade, because of course they want to do that. You know, when I was sitting on a panel at my last expo at CBD Expo in Seattle, we were talking about that. And someone asked the question of, do you think hemp is going to be commoditized like everything else? Yes. Of course it is. Of course it is.
It's not fucking magic. It's a plan.
People are already buying futures on this.
Yeah.
People are already buying them. Don't get swayed by the fact that this was a legal substance and now has become legal for some magical reason. It's not going to be a part of the legal market like everything else. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Well, it's going to be traded internationally.
Think about Canopy made a deal with Acreage Holdings that as soon as national legalization, the U.S. goes through, they will buy Acreage. What is Acreage doing? Acreage has been buying up a bunch of U.S. companies. So look, man, if John Boehner supports something, fucking wake up, man, because that guy does not support anything that isn't in his best interest. Not your best interest, his best interest.
especially especially the guy Boehner that supported all of these anti-cannabis bills for the longest time and for private prisons.
Yeah.
Yet hops on board of Acreage Holdings. And here's a fun fact. There are only 2 companies in the world that own all the genetics of every single cannabis strain in the entire world. You know who they are? It's GW Pharmaceuticals and Acreage Holdings.
Fuck Acreage Holdings, dude. Fuck.
And of course Canopy bought them.
Not yet, but they will.
Yes.
I think that it's just frustrating because even now, all these people who started this industry went to jail for this industry. A lot of them are still in jail. They're still going to jail for it. And guess who's not getting hired by cannabis companies? Cannabis
people.
Mm-hmm. So what, you want to make it legal. Do you really think you're going to get a fucking job in it? You're not. You're not even hireable to these people because they have no respect for cannabis people because you worked in an illicit industry. Who wins? That's the question.
The big people, the big business do. And that, I mean, you really want to think morbid. Like, this is case in point what all industries do.
Yes. All profitable commodities get exploited.
Because people don't realize that it's not about people. It's not about who they are, what they believe in, what they do. It has nothing to do about it.
Nope.
What people don't realize, and that's because most people are in. Honestly, it's a product of our society. We drove into this mass industrial market where people work on manufacturing lines. They've stopped working their own businesses, doing small jobs for these local communities, and they've built this national empire where they just work as a worker for 7, 10, 12, $15 an hour and make their way, and they're happy that they're making $15 an hour, and they're like, oh well, at least you have a job. Well, way back in the day, everyone had their own business. Everyone did their own thing, or they apprenticed, or they do all these other things. They worked for themselves, and they forgot that entrepreneurial mindset. They forgot that business mindset. And what the business mindset is, it has nothing to do most of the time about the people. It has everything to do about the dollar. It's everything about the bottom line. Where is their money going? How is their money going to be made? How are they reinvesting into this? What are their shareholders going to feel if we make this, and this decision? It has nothing to do with the activism, has nothing to do with the people, has nothing to do with any of that. Because at the end of the day, it is a machine.
Like Uber, okay? For instance, the fucking CEO of Uber just bought a 123-room mansion in Los Angeles while Uber drivers are out there just trying to get paid a normal fee. And guess what? Uber has never made a fucking profit, ever.
Of course they haven't.
Because if they did, they would actually have to pay taxes and pay their shareholders. So really, people need to pay attention to the fact that this isn't a meritocracy, okay? Just because you gave your blood, sweat, and tears does not mean shit at all. And I know because I'm one of those people, which is why I've decided to make a career out of calling out bullshit, because there's no fucking way I'd work in this industry anymore. It sucks. It's not fun. You don't get paid well. You're not appreciated. It's just not worth it. And we haven't even gotten it nationally legalized yet. So, I mean, at least right now there are some small
just wait for that day. It's gonna be another shitstorm.
It's fucking very unfortunate, and it's just very unfortunate. We could literally go on for days, but our time has come to an end. We will have another conversation about the CBD industry with legalization. And where we see that going, because it's not good either.
Oh man. That needs to be another conversation for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But Brad, tell people where they can find you.
So my name is Brad Slaughter. You can find me. Our portfolio company is Nature Secret Holdings. You go to www.naturesecretholdings.com. Our 2 product line companies that we have launched is CBD Spa. So www.cbdspa.us, cbdspa.us, and cbdpatriot.us. For CBD Patriot, 20% of all of our proceeds goes to local veterans organizations. Right now, we're working with Sarasota Veterans Commission that gives to 15 different veterans organizations to everything that's in need, especially for housing for veterans. Because if there's one thing that the government screwed people over on, it is the veterans. So we want to make sure that our veterans are taken care of, no matter how you believe it.
I cannot agree more, and I love hearing that. This is conscious capitalism. There's nothing wrong with making money, but fucking put some money towards things that help people, not just towards 123-room mansions in Los Angeles when you already have like mansions all over the place that you could not fucking possibly live in. I was even thinking like maybe that dude would let me like watch a couple rooms for him while he's not there, you know? I mean, he wouldn't even have to see me, literally, you know?
There's a psychological study that says that anything over $70,000 is negligence, on the point of where after you make that much money, it's just power that you're looking for or more money.
Yeah, because the value of a dollar.
Taken care of. Yeah. Exactly. So to me and how we run our businesses is that it's not about the profit. What it's about is helping people. Like for CBD products, it's $100, $120. We don't sell it at that point. We want to make sure that, of course, we're a business, we make profit, but we want to make sure it's a proper price for people to actually pay for. I cannot tell you how many times people have needed pure, good CBD products, broad spectrum, full spectrum products that actually have full cannabinoids and terpenes in them that are paying $120 and we provide it for 60 or 70. You know, it's something that is good for the consumer, that they can actually afford, and they can actually move on with their lives and get something solid and quality out of it.
Yes, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in. You will hear from me next week. Have a great day.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast host. It really helps us get the truth out to a larger audience. You can follow us on Instagram at CannabisPod and on LinkedIn at the Cannabis Detector. Show notes and links to articles referenced in this episode are available on our website, cannabispod.com. Is there a topic you want to hear, or do you have some BS you'd like to tell our audience? Send us a message on Instagram at CannabisPod. Stay skeptical.